Well, hello everyone. My name is Zachary O'Shea, and this is Box of Teeth. I have another horror-themed monster for Dungeons & Dragons for you today, connected to the antagonists that we've been working on, so stay tuned. As a reminder, we're covering La Contessa as a universal antagonist for a Dungeons & Dragons game that has a nice horror bent. She's basically an amalgamation of Count Dracula and Van Helsing, kind of all rolled into one. She's a former noblewoman whose family and country were destroyed by vampires, and she went on the hunt. She's also an alchemical genius who has used profane science to extend her own life, and because of this, her morality is slowly but surely bled away until she's very much now an ends justifies the means. She covers 3 different subgenres of horror, which are gothic horror, science horror, and vampire horror. And this extends to all of her minions. We're going to cover one of those right now, which is a skeletal effigy. One of the consistent themes for La Contessa's minions is that they are classic gothic horror monsters that are twisted with black science in a way to be something new, and she's really using fire to fight fire. It's just that fire is blue instead of red, as it were. And this rings especially true with the skeletal effigy. It looks like a skeleton, it walks like a skeleton, it attacks like a skeleton. However, the skeletal effigy is really just a clever copy of alchemically treated wood that has been painted and garbed to appear as one of the most basic of undead horrors, which is, again, a skeleton. It takes a really keen eye to see through this ruse, at least until the effigy explodes in a shower of wooden shards. Early in her battles against the vampires that destroyed her life, La Contessa was trying to figure out exactly why a wooden stake through the heart was a weakness for most vampires. She found no sort of scientific reason for this phenomenon, and even after lengthy experiments involving a restrained bloodsucker, their central organ in the middle of their chest, and a variety of woods, she still wasn't quite sure exactly what happened. Eventually, these torturous trials paid off, though, and she was able to develop an alchemical solution that could be soaked into a wood of any sort that did give a modicum of paralytic effect no matter where it would hit a vampire or other kinds of undead. She was really happy about this because there was a variety of undead minions she had to deal with, but also it proved poisonous to a vampire's mortal minions that they often employ. Once La Contessa figured this out, she took some time to figure out the best delivery system. In this case, it was making faux skeletons crafted from this soaked wood that were then rigged to explode when destroyed. Not only could these constructs really infiltrate a vampire's shambling ranks of minions and the like, but when a horde of skeletal effigies pile onto one of the blood-sucking bastards, the multitude of resulting detonations eventually riddled the leech with enough paralytic that they froze up. And then La Contessa, all she needed to do was just swoop in and leisurely decapitate the horror. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the skeletal effigy statistics for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. The skeletal effigy is a challenge rating 1 medium construct that is unaligned. It is vulnerable to bludgeoning damage, but is immune to necrotic and poison damage, and has a series of condition immunities you would expect a construct to have. As mentioned before, it does have death burst, so when it is destroyed, the skeletal effigy explodes, sending out wooden shards in a 5-foot area around it that do piercing damage, and on top of that, if a living creature is hit by those shards, they have to make a save, or they are poisoned. If an undead creature is hit by these shards, instead they have to make a save or be paralyzed, and of course these saves can be repeated at the end of each and every turn. It does have undead appearance, so it's indistinguishable to the naked eye when it comes to any sort of investigation to see if it's not actually an undead skeleton or not. It does have multi-attack, so it can make 2 attacks with its short sword, which it carries around, and it can also attack with a short bow, again very similar to a classic skeleton in that regard. So this is just one way to take a very typical gothic horror villain, put your own little twist on it in this case, and even if you send it against player characters and use it for perhaps one of your other villains or just a unique dungeon of yours, it can definitely leave an impression where they're not quite sure when they're fighting undead if they're actually undead, and that could be a lot of fun. I'd love to hear how you would use them in your own campaign. Of course, you can find La Contessa, all of her minions, and hundreds of other horror-themed monsters, all for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, that are all perfectly free at boxofteeth.blogspot.com. If you're more interested in the non-Dungeons & Dragons role-playing projects that I have, or the horror fiction that I write that includes Grease Paint right here, Book 2 will be revealed very, very soon, hopefully early summer at the latest. You can always go to www.zacharyoshea.com. As always, I really do appreciate your time and your attention, and have a great rest of the week ahead of you.